Survivor specialist Alexa and James are back. We are missing special guest Phil. He was unable to make it today, but lucky you. Oh, what is that bounce back that I just heard? Okay, that was you. Lucky you. It's just Alexa and James tonight. Welcome back to the podcast. We just did a little math. This is James' fourth appearance on the podcast. That's a big step.
Yeah, it's my fourth time, co-hosting the podcast.
It's a big job.
They count those numbers on SNL, so might as well count for this as well. It's
Oh,
nice to be back and be talking with Alexa, and I'm even more pleased at the lack of Phil.
yes.
Alexa and I will officially, I think, vote today to oust Phil and make it Alexa and James going forward. So just FYI to all the viewers.
That rolls off the tongue a lot better, and it's a 2-3 vote. So I'm confident Phil isn't even listening right now. So what he doesn't know won't hurt him. But we are so happy to have you back. Phil and I have been iffy on this season, as I'm sure that you have heard, and I know our fans have heard. We would love to hear, I'm saying we as if Phil is sitting next to me, which he's not. I would love to hear what you think about this season. You can agree with us or you can violently disagree with us. We've had all spectrums so far.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I've been a loyal listener of your weekly reaction shows on Wednesday nights. I would actually host some of my friends from business school at my apartment. About 10 of us watch together every Wednesday night. And then I send them out, and then I kind of log on to watch the tweets come in and watch you guys live that night. So quick shout out actually to my HBS crew. That's Meredith, Andrew, Bailey, Rob, Samantha, and Hussein.
Shout out.
With them. And so I think that having seen your shows, I know that the reaction has ebbed and flowed a lot, between the pure outrage after that twist episode to kind of some of the more satisfactory reviews after a strategy heavy episode. I think overall, I would say that as an alum and more of an old school purist type of Survivor fan, it's just a lot, right? I'm not saying it's necessarily a terrible thing, but I think personally, right, Survivor had this amazing opportunity post-COVID or during COVID to have this group of people that found the show on Netflix, that rediscovered the show on these streaming options. And a ton of people even came to me during COVID, during the school year, and said that people my age, we're talking about the prime 18 to 30 age range, right? And they'll come to me and say that they rediscovered the show and they forgot just how much fun it was to watch the show, right? Because they had dropped off around 2002, 2003. And they still realized that A, the show is still on, and then B, it's still the same basic format of 20 people duking it out, and they found it awesome. So Survivor had this amazing opportunity, and what they did with the opportunity is to go all out in the twist-heavy, complicated kind of season idea, which personally wouldn't be my first choice, but I respect, obviously, what Jeff and Matt and all the EPs have done. It's just a little bit, I, having played the game, find it to be almost hard to track, every element of who has what and who's with whom and what twists are coming up every episode. So I can't imagine what it feels like to be a casual viewer watching the show and trying to follow. And it's funny because I was talking to, I have some friends who are more of a hardcore fan like us and some friends who are not. And I've spoken with the casual fans of mine that I know, and they actually say that, yes, it's a lot and it is complicated, but at the end of the day, it is still Survivor. So maybe it's not, this mortal sin that it's been a really complicated season. I just think that, especially the last couple of episodes, we have seen more of this shifting towards a strategy-heavy narrative and a strategy-heavy edit, which I think has made the show a lot more compelling. But all in all, great casting. Obviously, we'll get to the cast probably. Great
awesome casting.
And just there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. And I also, super anecdotally, I've heard the same thing. Like, Phil and I will scream our heads off every week about how upset we are. And I talk to my parents and they're like, I like it, but I'm confused. And then I actually just met 2 people at a party yesterday who are really into Survivor. And I was asking them about it. And they liked it. They're like, they were like, I don't know that what is it? Not the bottle twist. What am I trying to say? That word.
What is it called again?
I don't know. Why am I just completely losing
The
this?
sand coming down the clock.
Yep, that thing, the time turning twist. They were like, we liked it. Can someone please tell us what this word is? I was really hoping that was the next comment.
Yeah, the live.
They're really into it. So I think it's working for some people. And I know we say this hourglass. Thank you, Javier Martinez. My God, this is not good. I had a Friendsgiving earlier today. This was not, thinking of the word hourglass is not at top of mind. But I think it's scratching the itch. It's exciting. It's creating drama. And I think not everybody is taking it as like personally as we are as massive fans. And it's not for me, but at the same time, I am still watching it. And to your point, this cast is making me continue on, not all the twists.
Yeah, and so just before we came on live, I checked real quick the ratings for the season so far, and my theory was that it wasn't going to be enough to draw a big live audience every Wednesday night, but we're going to have a big DVR push, kind of the way that people are used to watching Survivor on Netflix and Hulu. It's on their own feature, it's on their own schedule. And just like that, we have seen about 3 to 4 million every single week watching the show on DVR, right? So despite the live ratings going down, the total has stayed strong at about 9+, between 9 and 8.
Gotcha.
Right? Which is really very strong. I believe that that's above 39 and 38 for sure. And, you know, it's double the Bachelor franchise. As I always tell my friends, like, you guys like The Bachelor more, but first of all, we have standards here. Like, it's an actual show about real people and the character and the politics. And we have double the ratings of The Bachelor.
It really doubles The Bachelor?
I believe The Bachelor pulls in about 5 million every week.
Oh my God. Maybe it's just the world I live in, but I would say 1 out of every 4 girls I know watch the Bachelor franchise. And I would say 1 out of every 30 people I interact with watch Survivor. So I'm hanging out with the wrong people, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Same here, right? I mean, girls at school have Bachelor viewing parties every Tuesday, is it? Night. But I think that's because the average Survivor viewing demographic is a family of 4 in Ohio. Right?
Yeah,
they have dinner together, and then they log on to watch Survivor together and talk about it. And the kids, you know, grow up watching people like Xander or Liana or Erica and get inspired, or Evie. And we'll talk about her in a bit. And I think it's been, you know, hopefully a good way for CBS to keep the interest high, right? And to tell America that we still have a stronghold on the, you know, between Survivor, The Amazing Race, and Big Brother, more of the strategy-driven, non-love obsessed show format.
Yes, that's what The Bachelor is all about, of course. Who are you liking? Who do you think is going to win? Who do you want to win? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So as I said before, big fan of this cast, right? So I remember as soon as the cast got spoiled on a certain website, I went and checked the roster and did some basic research, as most alumni do. And so figured out really quick that, for instance, Evie and Sarah live in Boston. Evie is a Harvard student currently, like myself, and turns out that we'll be walking together to the same commencement ceremony this coming May.
That's
so
awesome.
We have to link up and take a photo together. But honestly, it's hard to find a sore spot in the current cast. I will say, for instance, the only name that jumps out is that I just don't know who Heather is still, right? But that's not her fault. It's more of the edit's fault. And I'm sure that she is, you know, a mom with like a lot of like feisty character and personality. It's just that she has not been shown at all.
Right.
I mean, if Sydney Seagull comes out and goes, "I hate this woman" in Exit Press, like there must be a reason why.
Like, but why? I would have loved to know.
Right. But I would love to. Well, actually, like I don't know about divvying up the viewing, the airtime differently, but besides her, like, you know, everyone else I think has gotten some pretty good screen time around their story and how they're thinking about the gameplay. Some favorites, I think, obviously, having watched the season from the start and being a pre-merger myself, I can't get over just how amazing Shan played in the first 5 or 6 episodes. I remember I tweeted when the merge hit, just Chantel, possibly the greatest pre-merge game ever, and I truly mean it.
Yeah,
we built a Mount Rushmore of pre-merge games. I think she would definitely be one of the top 4 names to be up there. Just controlling every vote and not alienating anyone and never having her name come up in any way, and just running I believe the Green Tribe from start to finish and hitting the merge. I, first of all, just really like her style. It's cutthroat, but also it's very authentic. It's emotionally vulnerable, and it's clear to me that, and all of us probably, that she is somebody that has a soft heart and in real life really loves, empathy and connecting with people. I mean, as a pastor, right?
Right.
Trying to put on this mask of a cutthroat assassin on Survivor, and it has gone pretty well so far, but it's definitely like having a toll on her. And I really appreciate watching that internal struggle within her, right? And her big eyes, like, kind of quivering every time she has to like tell someone a lie and like tell someone that, you're tonight. I do think that her game has faltered a bit post-merge, and this kind of need to control everything, right? I think that desire has come to the forefront a bit, but in terms of gameplay, just really admire her myself, and I think she's done a great job. Just as a person, it's hard to pick one person, I think, but I have to go with my guy Deshawn. Just purely because of, I think, watching him play has made me think, I wish I had his level of social gameplay when I was on the island. It's just masterful, and I think he really has a keen eye of, like, when he's talking to someone, or when he's talking to Jeff at Tribal, or when he's observing a conversation, he knows exactly what's going on in terms of, the power dynamics, the right thing to say so as to curry favors, the right thing to, the right body language, the right, even like the eye contact, the choice of words and all that. It's just very always on point. And it's clear that he's not trying. This is just his natural state, right? And one of my friends, Brooke from college, I believe knows Deshawn from both just being medical students. And so I think perhaps that gave him some practice in dealing with a wide range of personalities and characters. But I think, just can't. I think if I were on the beach myself, he would be somebody that would naturally gravitated towards, right? I'd be like, hey man, like, let's work together, and like, how can I help your game? And he'll definitely, then, respond the right way and say like, oh, like I got your back, and then you'll have my back, etc. So I think it's one of the standouts as well.
I think I was just thinking this as you were saying this, like, and this applies to both Shan and Deshawn, but also I feel like every person on this cast, they're so real. And I feel for Shan getting all this flack because she's like, because her game is not perfect right now. She's super real. And I was saying last week, I loved that her and Deshawn and her and Ricard have these like very raw emotional conversations, like trying to level set each other's emotions. Nobody is trying to be the villain and nobody is trying to be the narrator. Everyone is actually obviously extremely knowledgeable about the game because every just broke a challenge, but everyone's actually just being themselves and they're not trying to play a character. And I think that's really showing. And I like that they're showing the vulnerabilities and like the assets of every player. And I think that's just making everyone a lot more complicated. Like, I think the Shannon Ricard relationship is one of the best ones we've seen in a while. And I think that's the same for Shannon Liana, Shannon Deshawn. I think there's a common denominator in these really interesting relationships, and that person is Shan. And she's making for some really like fantastic and interesting like sociology.
Yeah, certainly. And I think in terms of your point about people being authentic, it's, I think, again, goes back to the strength of the cast, right? I mean, all 20 of these people came out to play and be themselves. And in most casts, you really don't see that across the board, right? And maybe like half the cast will really show up to play and be a character. The other half will either want to like just follow somebody else's tail or kind of clam up when it's time to like, when the lights come up and it's time to go big or go home. But at the same time, I think what's really helped this is us getting this unique view into somebody's background, right? So I think Survivor's trying some new things here, Jeff breaking the fourth wall and giving us these pre-packaged snapshots into somebody's story. And I personally think that both of these at least are positive changes, right? I mean, to know that, I know, Jeff was originally against this because he wanted the show to be more of a documentary, kind of like Lost, right? And the reality is we all know it's a show, right? And he's now been elevated to a point where we all think that he is this kind of transcendental being on the show. And so having a host like him who has charisma and humor break the fourth wall, I think it's a net positive than negative.
Yeah.
Even the bigger benefit has been just these insights that we get into somebody like JD's, like background growing up as a, an uncool kid and finding his confidence through Survivor, through Malcolm and watching people growing up, all the way to Erica's, parents immigrating to Canada and her having to watch them and be proud and to support her family through this journey. And just hearing people's kind of so what, right? Why are they here and what part of their lives have interacted with Survivor in the past? I think that is something that we all as cast members bring to the show. And the more of that kind of content we get, I think the higher quality of a show we become. Because as a viewer, then, like hearing about Ricard's, difficulty hearing, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Or Evie's proud identity as a queer lesbian, for instance, like just hearing those stories, that's why you watch Survivor. At the end of the day, you watch Survivor for the politicking, the strategy, and the cast, right? The cast really makes the show what it is. And if that's the strength, you might as well double down and show America just how amazing these people are. And you do that by telling a more authentic story as to who they really are and what they care about.
Right. Because if you just watch person A and person B strategizing with each other, you're not going to be nearly as invested unless you maybe relate to one of them or you really don't like one of them. So you need those background stories. And I think this premiere was one of the best premieres I've seen in a while. You guys also had a really great premiere. But that breaking the fourth wall, that showing the cameras, especially during challenges, they did that a few weeks ago as well. I think that sort of is just a cool wave to fans. I remember, I think it was an EW article a few years ago where Dalton Ross interviewed Jeff about how do you make a marooning? And I'm sure that article killed it because people love to see the backside of this stuff. And I think those flashbacks just provided a really quick, digestible, easy way to learn about everyone's backgrounds and to humanize everyone and sort of just explain some people's intentions too, which I think I hope they continue on with that. I really liked the flashbacks.
Yeah, certainly. And that kind of got me thinking, it's never going to happen, but one of these kind of funny ideas I had at one point was, I was just watching some football today, and you know how when they play NFL games, each player on offense and defense do the cool, looking up into the camera, and they go name and college or high school.
Yeah, I love that.
Number of seasons, position, and that's the chyron. And yes, we lost the intro, and rest in peace to that. We miss it, but having a quick kind of funny intro where every person can do the cool looking up pose and then say kind of a one-liner about who they are or why they're playing or what they care about. I think an approach like that, just the spirit of connecting America better to each individual cast member. I think that is never a bad thing.
Right. And every time, this doesn't happen too often recently, but every time a player lifts his head and says, insert name here, University of Miami, I get super pumped. So it automatically just creates that relationship. So
yeah.
I'm with you there. As with all the problems I've had with this season, I think one thing that they knocked out of the park was the cast and the casting choices. It's also it's now come out that Tiffany was an alternate. So it's crazy to think that she maybe wouldn't have even been on the season. And she was has been such a blast. So really 10 out of 10 job on the casting for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, to your point, actually, that even gets me thinking that I have personally, honestly felt the most connected with, of all people, Sydney Siegel, ironically. And of no other reason than because she was a Columbia track and field athlete for 4 years, right?
Yes.
And that I knew that though because of my own research into the cast. So I had to put in the work to know that fun fact about her. But having been, I believe, the first Ivy League track athlete to ever play, she's now number 2. We literally bonded over that, right? Over time. And I was rooting for her just because I wanted to see another track and field athlete rep us well out there. Now Xander, I believe is a current Chicago track athlete, right? So like,
Look at this cast.
For that one reason, I like this guy simply because he's a fellow track athlete, right?
Yeah.
And if viewers knew more of these fun tidbits about finding the right reasons to root for somebody, right? I mean, any Cowboy fan should know. I believe it hasn't been mentioned yet, right? But like, imagine if Danny in a confessional said something about like, go Cowboys, or like just like the cool things that he did for the franchise. Then all of Texas would probably,
get behind him.
Danny play.
Yeah,
he's crushing it, right? So maybe some kind of efficient way to get those, kind of identifications out there would be also pretty fun.
Yeah. And to talk about Danny specifically, I think it's so cool that so everyone knows it wasn't made super obvious, but I think everyone at this point knows that he was an NFL player and not, I forget what he said. I don't know if he said he was a high school coach. Right, of course. I think he has done one of the best jobs we've ever seen of like former professional athletes on the show. And I think it helps that I'm pretty sure that he was a big fan beforehand, but I remember I saw a theory that said he's throwing challenges. I don't know if that's true or not, but we've seen him try to do it once, but I think he's doing a really great job of minimizing the fact that he is built like an NFL player and he's just not really being looked at the same way that players of his build usually are. So it's really impressive how he's mitigating that.
Yeah. And not to spoil it, but he's pretty high up on my power rankings.
Same here.
And I think to dig into your point, though, if you think about the past examples of pro athletes, right? I mean, my first example would be Scott Pollard, right? I mean,
yeah.
And I forget the name, but
his
wrong.
Kyle.
Really? The one that passed away?
Oh, Cliff Robinson.
Yes, right?
Yes, Cliff Robinson, yes.
And if you think about those characters, I mean, again, never been a pro athlete, will never be a pro athlete. But
not with that attitude.
Actually, knowing Gabby Thomas, right? I mean, she was my teammate for a couple of years, and
oh wow,
having done that with her and knowing her life a little bit, right? By the way, Gabby Thomas, for the viewers, Tokyo 200-meter bronze medalist, the rising star of USA track and field, ran Harvard track with me, and having this glimpse into her life, it's not a normal life, right? Yeah. I mean, these pro athletes, the amount of intensity they bring to every practice session, the spotlights, the media projects, the ego, the social media stuff, for them to come on a show where standing out is always a bad thing is tough, right? And obviously that's why we all, I mean, them included, try to lie about things that might make us a target, right? So not talking about going to Harvard or not talking about having been in the NFL. I mean, I get it. And someone like Danny, I think, above all, I think his strength is to sometimes just sit back and go with the flow.
Yeah.
Right? To be a part of an alliance that's holding strong and to say to Sean or Shan or Liana, do your thing. I'm going to just sit back and be a pleasant, hardworking, strong team member and not ruffle any feathers. And for the most part, at least until around the final 6, like that works great, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't think of a single name out there right now in the final 8 that does not like Danny. And that's a very unique kind of advantage to have, because as we saw in the preview, like this is around where people really start thinking, if I survive a few more votes and if I make a few right moves now, like I'll be the one sitting at the end. And for me to do that, I need to take out XYZ names, and his name is not on that list even right now. And so I think just overall a very strong game by him. And I'm sure that a football fan like Brenda would hate to say, go insert any Cowboys player, but as a Pats fan, it's fine. Like, I think he's been a really great addition to the cast.
He's been a great addition to the cast. And also as a Pats fan, I'll support him. I don't need to support the entire organization he used to play for, but I think you're so right. Danny has no problem being like number 2, not being the head of the snake, the guy in charge, whatever you want to use. And that probably comes from him just having a career as a teammate. We saw this when Heather was struggling in that challenge pre-merge. He was the first one to go to her. He's somebody who clearly knows how to be a good teammate. And I think he's watching the Deshawn drama with Shan, the Shan drama with Ricard. And he's saying, I don't need that. Like, I'll vote with them, but I don't need to get involved. And he'll go to people, like you see him and Xander kind of having some side-eye conversations. They'll chat and he'll sort of drop a name and then walk away and not feel the need to force the conversation or to force that vote. It's really impressive, and it's very like low key but confident at the same time. So Danny is my number one for next week. I think Danny is by and away the safest player.
Are we going 1 to 8 or 8 to 1?
We are going safest to who we think is going to go home. So 1 to 8.
That makes it better though, because my number one is also Danny.
Easy enough.
I guess we have talked about him in a little bit, but I will make the point that, as I should as a loyal Malolo member, that gameplay, his gameplay, only works if you're in the majority.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
Only works if you have the numbers and enough people will come to you and tell you what the plan is, and all you have to do is go along with it.
Right.
If you're in the bottom or if you're in the minority and you pull out that plan, it will never work and you'll go home, because like the need to scramble. Okay, how about some football analogies, right? Like if you're a quarterback and there's a guy blitzing and coming at your face and you have to scramble, you can't take I'm just going to take my first, second, or third read and chill here and see what happens and be a pocket passer approach. Well, that will not work, right?
Right.
When you have to scramble, you have to scramble. And Danny's approach is the anti-scramble. It's like being a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning approach.
Right.
And sometimes you have to be a Justin Fields or a Pat Mahomes and go crazy. And I know that feeling because of my 17 days in the show. I was in the majority 0 days. Or the first Malolo 6 days, yes, I guess, right? But from day 7 to day 17, for 11 days, I scrambled. And I honestly wish that at some point in time, I could have just taken his approach and sat back, and it would have worked out, but that was not my reality. And so just going back to the reality that Survivor is over half luck.
Yes.
I would give it a 60-40 luck to skill ratio, and even more so on a season like this where you win a challenge and this girl comes to you and goes, I made history and I turned back time. Now you're gonna not be immune, right? I mean,
luck changes a little bit.
Yeah, of all the twists this season, that was the single most egregious one, I think. And I think it was Daniel Deshawn that pointed out the fact that twists are fine, but don't break the spirit of Survivor, which is compete hard,
right,
and win things, because when you win things like challenges, right, that's how you go farther in the game. That's how you are safe and immune until the next vote. And it flips that entire logic on its head. And so I think Adam Klein pointed this out. What's not to stop people from thinking in future seasons, having watched this episode, oh, here's a challenge, but why should I do my best? Because who knows, maybe another hourglass will be out there on an island, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just not the best scenario for the spirit of Survivor.
Right. And it was Danny who pointed that out. He was like, we won, so therefore I should have been safe. And I mean, I obviously agreed with him, and I think you see Deshawn and maybe Ricard saying they're like, this is just what it is now. And there's kind of this weird sense of acceptance. And I'm really interested to see what seasons 43 and 44, how they're going to react to this, because they're probably going to have to play in a really different manner.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I want to get to number 2, but I have a quick sidebar that hopefully isn't too triggering of an ask. You mentioned that you made it 17 days. How does it feel to know that Evie and Nasir, I think they were voted out on day 17 or around then, having made the merge? That's tough.
It's honestly a bit triggering, right? I mean, knowing that day would have made the merge and I would have been on the jury. At the same time, I also know that, this season got shorter because of COVID, right? This was
completely different situation.
Yeah. CBS simply had to, take these measures to make the show happen. And so I fully applaud that. Just bring back the show and they also wanted to be responsible and quarantine the right way,
Yes.
right, and comply with the Fijian regulations. And so that's not a problem with me. It's more of a thing when if we, in a post-COVID world, stick to 26, that might be an issue, because at the end of the day, like, you know how seasons, like our casts all have these bouts of ego where we all think that we played the toughest season out there, and we all think that we were part of a really cool, likable season. And us, I guess Australia has the best kind of, you know, authority there, having played 42 days, but the rest of us will never let 41 forget ever that they played a short season. I will personally remind them, if I meet them, that they played a 26-day season, and they'll probably hate it, but that is a reality. And so, I mean, again, like, is a show really that rigid such that the number of days cannot change? I don't know. And that's our own preference. But, you know, I mean, one of the catchphrases of the show has always been 39 days, blank people, one survivor. And that's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss it, right?
Yeah. That's one of the best lines.
Yeah. And to just, I think it's still enough days where I respect the people that go to the end and will have starved for 25, 26 days. But it is not this exact same, obviously.
Right. You should make sure to bring that up to Evie when you two are walking down graduation at the same time. I
should look up actually whether Evie was also a Day 17 Club member, because that'll be a cool connection to have.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's funny. I just thought of that. So with that, who is the second safest person for you next week?
Yeah, so my number 2 is Erica.
Okay.
And this, I think, comes from more of the alliance analysis, right? And again, to remind everyone, it's more of the who I think is the safest next Wednesday. It's not the winner power rankings. It's not the who I like the most. It's not any of that. It's more like, you know, if you were ranking a safety kind of level, right? I want the person at the bottom. I think they'll go home. I think Erica is in a pretty good spot, and she's pretty safe. And that's because of the dynamics we saw unfold over the last couple of weeks. So Erica had a pretty quiet, almost invisible purple pre-merge,
right?
And a breakout episode by changing history. And
there are quotes for those of you who are listening on iTunes.
And breaking the hourglass. Again, I have to point out that you usually use those by flipping them upside down, not by smashing them with a wooden hammer. Just
typically.
Production FYI. But then she adds, and you know it's a good sign when you get that personal narrative. That was that episode.
Yes.
And since then, she's actually shown herself to, winning individual immunity and playing a solid strategic game. So right now, if I look at the alliances, the big one that comes to mind is the camp out. Danny, Rana, Deshawn, Shan. Shan and Ricard are like this as well. They've been together since day one. Erica claims that Erica's number 1 is Heather, which is interesting. There's the lone wolf in Xander, who now has no ally left. And maybe nominally Erica and Heather. Okay. So nominally Erica is in a minority, I would say. But 1, we got a strong hint that Deshawn and Ricard go at it.
Yes.
That's not good for the majority. The majority is going to implode. And then B, if you think about Xander, Erica, and Heather, Xander is such a big presence that everyone will want to think of him as a big threat. That's not good. Heather just doing Heather things. I don't know. So I think Erica has ingratiated herself enough with members of the majority that no matter what happens, I don't think she'll be the collateral damage in the chopping block, right?
Right.
I think she'll be pretty safe next week.
Yeah, it is. I thought it was really interesting that Erica said that Heather was her number 1, because that feels like that's kind of a new thing. But I think you're right. I think a lot of the heat is going to be in the main alliance right now. So I think the collateral damage, if there is any, I think you're right. It's not going to be her. I go a different route. I actually have Xander as my second safest.
Yeah.
He has no friends. However, he has a public idol and now kind of has to use it. I fear he's going to flush it. I think that this majority alliance is going to just move him into a corner and kind of force his hand to play it, which is obviously smart of them. But he also, not only does he have that kind of safety, he also seems to enjoy playing from the bottom. The difference now is he's always had some sort of people. He really doesn't have that anymore. I think we've really only seen him interacting with Erica a little bit. So maybe him, Erica, and Heather can get something done. We've sort of seen him and Danny chat, but nothing has really come to fruition on that. So I think what I imagine Xander will do is enjoy the drama that's ensuing, have this idol as a safety net, potentially have to lose it, but I actually think he's going to be okay for probably only 1 or 2 more weeks.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, a spot on analysis. I agree with that 100%. And that's exactly why he's my number 3.
Okay. Awesome.
And just can't, I think I remind my friends when they come to watch every week. So we are about 27 to 30 years old. He's 20, I believe.
Yeah, he's young.
College. And I played at age 24. And looking back, even from age 28, I was so young back then. I've grown so much, such that I would want to go back and play again, because I know that I've matured so much between 24 and 28. You take that and go back another distance, and he's here in college, right? And
it's crazy.
In college, I mean, yes, I was a social guy in college, but I would have been crushed by the pressure of Survivor.
Absolutely.
He's playing an amazing game. He's obviously the new golden boy of CBS, and he deserves it because, I mean, he's strategic, eloquent, well-spoken. Unlike Liana, I think he's a good-looking guy. He's, I don't hate his face or anything like that. And obviously being a track athlete, it wins favors for me. But I can't think of an easy example besides Fabio that at that age of 20 coming on Survivor and being so composed and mature and just playing a masterful game. Again, as you said, from the bottom, surviving from the bottom over and over and over again, it's not easy.
It's really not.
What is part of it?
I think, I don't know the exact number, but I think the average age of Survivor winners is 33. Yeah, it was in low 30s, which completely makes sense. I think now I feel like we're seeing winners trending a bit younger, but I think that says a lot. And I feel like a huge chunk of Survivor casts are usually under the age of 27, let's say. And so it's really fascinating that actually winner, it's not the oldest person, but it's usually somebody who's on the older half. So really impressive that Xander's playing the way that he is.
Yeah, I mean, UChicago is rooting for him hard, and I hope he's having some viewing parties on campus, because if I were in college and doing this well,
oh my God,
I would live it up, right? So,
oh my God, I sure hope he is.
Yeah, and and I think so about his gameplay, as we just discussed, he's the free agent.
Yes.
And if the benefit of the free agent is that if the majority sticks together, then you're complete toast. But if they splinter, you're the number 1 asset because you're a number.
Yep.
I think given the preview, again, what's going to happen next week is, given this war, both sides will want Xander to join their team for the vote.
Yes.
Right. And so again, confined to next week, he's going to be more of an asset than somebody on the chopping block. That being said, back to your point, I simply don't see this guy winning because he is a number 1 target to chop off before the final 4. I mean, he has to go. If people are playing this game right now have brains, and I think they do, he's got to go. And so sadly, he will not, I think, win. But right now, again, looking at this coming episode, strong position and overall just playing a great game. So major props to Xander.
Big props to Xander. I'm no matter where he lands, he has been so entertaining, winning or going home this week. Regardless, he's been great. My number 3 is Erica, so I'll go through that one pretty quickly. I think you're right. I think she has done a really good job of making her hand was a little forced, very controversial decision of smashing the hourglass.
Very controversial and very rational.
Very correct choice of doing that. The heat has not been on her. I think it actually benefits her how ridiculous this twist was, because the heat has been on general Survivor and not on Erica. Shan has mentioned that she wants Erica gone, but she also wants Xander gone. And I think if I'm Erica and I know I'm in trouble, it's so much easier to sell Xander as the guy to get rid of than herself. She's close with Heather. She could work with Xander. There's enough, there are enough avenues for her. I am nervous because her name does pop up as she gets like the Libby treatment of like, ooh, Erica. But we as viewers don't quite know why. But I think she'll be okay for this week.
Yeah, agreed. And so I guess our top 3 are the same 3 people, which is a good start.
Good start. We'll see if it stays the same.
Replace Phil. And I think a co-host should look, eye to eye with you on a lot of things. And so, again, it's going well so far.
This is going great. 40 minutes in, and Phil's somehow not a part of this podcast anymore. Number 4 for you.
Heather.
Okay. I have Heather close by. Let's hear your Heather take.
No big reason. I literally Heather bullet point. Truly a mystery.
Question mark.
She has been, and we did see her almost go home this past week, but we got to realize that this was under a very unique situation of like these 5-5 split tribal.
Mm-hmm.
Her 5-person group, it was going to be her or I guess Naseer. Naseer went home because he was a bigger threat, and Heather's name got thrown out because she didn't have enough connections, right? And that's not a good reason for you to be on the chopping block, and hopefully she'll recover once the 8-person group convenes together. Again, this, I think, I had a different ranking up until the next week on Survivor.
Yeah, that changed some things.
If that is true, and I think they're trying to tell us it's true, then again, under a splintered majority scenario, there's no reason why she will become collateral damage, right? And so, will she win? Absolutely not. Is she playing a good game? I don't know.
Unclear.
Don't know. Maybe yes.
She had a great performance at Tribal Council. She did quite well there, convincing Naseer how safe she was.
Yes, that is true.
He was, yes.
But well, it reminded me of the time that my day 6 vote when Jacob went home, but I was the second target.
Right. Which I'm sure felt awesome.
Well, okay. You gotta realize like how we got there. That was not awesome. But,
right.
but to know that I was sitting at Tribal playing up this like real scared act and knowing that it was gonna work out, it did. Watching it, get pulled off was good. But I hope that Heather did a same kind of move where she pretended that she was scared for her life and that the majority came to her and said like, here's the plan, so play along with us, and in return we'll save you for tonight. Also a quick point out that the extra vote to force a tie move was low-key really smart. So that makes me know that between Shane and Ricard, one or both of them are running the numbers the way I always did, and we love to see that. So Heather, again, kind of this enigma, but again, I don't think she's going to be on the chopping block. If Deshawn and Ricard go at it, I don't see any logical path from that battle to, okay, let's call her truth and just go for Heather because she's easy. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. I don't think we're at the point where we like vote out the easy person. I think there's still way too much tension. My number 4 is someone you probably have a lot lower, but I have Ricard at number 4. I think I never know whether to believe the preview or if they're playing with you, but I think I have Ricard higher than both Shan and Deshawn, which I'll get to them in a bit, but I think the Ricard and Deshawn drama, that will probably go back to Deshawn and Shan just because we've seen a little bit more of that. Ricard, we've been seeing like he fights Shan a lot and Deshawn fights Shan a lot. So maybe this is just like a majority alliance really ready to like be done with each other. But I don't know. I think Ricard knows when his back is against the wall. I think Ricard also would have no problem going to the Xanders, Ericas, and Heathers and saying, I don't feel good about my position. Why don't I work with you guys? He's shown to be extremely persuasive, very charismatic, and very easy to work with. And even with somebody who they hate each other, him and Shan, they're still loyal to each other and they're still working well. So I don't think this week is the end of Shan and Ricard, but I think this week starts the end of them. So I think Ricard is safe, which is probably a bit risky.
Got it. I think that's astute, and I'll get to him in due time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with the fact that, I mean, the alliance between Shan and Ricard and Shan has been one of the most highlighted two-person alliances in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like almost Wendell and Dom caliber the way it's been at the focal point of most moves, and it's even highlighted their, the alliance going well and the alliance going not so well. And it's hard to pinpoint who's the alpha and who's the beta. Maybe it's two alphas, and maybe that's the exact reason why.
I think that's it. That's why they're struggling so hard.
Now, Wendell and Dom were two alphas, but Wendell was the strategic alpha, and Dom was the kind of charisma / like enforcer alpha. And so the synergy was perfect. With Shan and Ricard, they honestly don't see eye to eye on most things now, but they're so intertwined at this point. Like, their fates are intertwined that they know that neither can live while the other survives.
Oh, what a reference there.
Right? And so they can't simply discard each other easily.
Yeah.
And the reason why I have him lower, and that's because if you look at Shan or Deshawn, going back to the camp out, they have this fallback alliance to fall back on, right? And Ricard, if you think about his tight relationships, is Shan, and I believe that's it. In terms of like ones that supersede, like, it's more like this is my ride or die, is Shan, and even that's like tenuous, and then there's like no one else. And so, as you point out, him going to Erica, Heather, and Xander will make the most sense. And maybe even the underdogs can like be a better team because they are underdogs. But we will see how that plays out next week. Also, can't ignore the possibility that, as you said, they love pulling one on us, and maybe this whole fight will be a red herring for the viewers.
Exactly. I'll go to my number 5 quick, just because you already mentioned her. Heather is my number 5. Like, in a bit of danger just because she doesn't have many allies, and her main ally is somebody that is already seen as kind of untrustworthy by the major group. But I don't think she's like anyone's target number 1. I think the drama that came from the Tiff tribal, I think Nasir is the one who was most upset by that. Nasir isn't there anymore. So Heather, I'm now going to have just generally in the back half, but I don't think this is her week.
Yeah, agreed. And so my number 5 is Liana, and so we get to kind of more of the tier 2 in terms of safety. So not so safe. This is going to be the remaining names are, for me, Liana, Shan, Deshawn, Ricard. So I have Liana at number 5. And so relatively speaking, it is, I mean, if you look at her game, she's playing hard. She's trying. Poor girl simply isn't Xander. And I bet she hates it. She absolutely hates it that she's not Xander, that she's not the golden boy.
Hates his face.
But we also got to realize she's 20. I believe she's currently at Georgetown. And I have a lot of Hoya friends who know that, and they're rooting for her. So go, Liana.
That's awesome.
This is, I think, more of the expected game from a college kid.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she has gone to the final 8. She should be proud of herself. It's been solid gameplay for the most part. And I think what she's running up against is the reality that she hasn't been able to control anything as the true alpha of a vote. She's never designed a tribal or a vote. She's been Shan's ally. She's been part of the camp out. But at the same time, she's never been a leader of sorts. And so if she does get to the final vote, a 3, I don't see her winning. That being said, again, because of this current dynamic, no one's, well, except for Xander, who also seems very chill about the fact that she hates him. He's like, fine.
He doesn't, I don't think he even notices.
Yeah. And so nobody is out to like gun for Liana.
Right.
She's not as strategically active as Ricard. She's not as present as Shan. And she doesn't she hasn't gone into any fights with anyone as Deshawn has, right?
Right.
And so of the tier 2 people, I have Liana relatively at the top. Yeah,
I think that's a good good interpretation of her position. I have her a bit lower, and I actually go with Deshawn as my number 6. I think for me, we're now officially in the any of these people can go home section. Deshaun, we are seeing having trouble with Ricard, and we've seen consistent trouble with Shan. And the one thing that Shan and Ricard are really good at is having a common enemy and getting rid of that common enemy together. So I think Deshaun is in a lot of trouble, but at the same time, I think he's a really, really smart player. And I think he has Danny, I think the two of them are going to stick together no matter what. I think it'll have to be a little bit of a fight for Liana. Liana seems to be much closer to Shan in the grand scheme of this majority alliance. So I'm not seeing as many avenues for Deshaun as I'm used to. Then again, he is kind of like the main target, and sometimes people don't always go for the main target. So they could be targeting Deshaun, but actually getting Danny, which would be a problem because he's both of our number ones.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think it's correct to say that of the 4-person alliance, Danny and Deshaun are tight, and Shan and Liana are tight. We can't forget the hike they took together and the bond they formed on top of
right. Yes.
I truly think that despite that having been almost 2 weeks ago, you don't forget those. Like when I had my conversation with Libby, Jonathan, and Laurel on the VD by the ocean, like you don't forget the bonds you form right then and there.
Right.
Especially when like it's really emotional conversation you have, a really awesome one. And so I think that Liana still truly believes that Shan's her older sister, and Shan looks at Liana the same way. And so given that, then all that Deshaun has is Danny, right? But Danny, though, going back to his point, is that Danny's a sit back and observe kind of player, right? Yeah. And he will not, I don't think Danny's ready, at least this episode, to go at bat for Deshaun. Actively collect intel and say that I'm going to fight for my boy Deshaun, even though Danny would probably do it in real life.
Right.
He wouldn't be as emphatic as somebody like Liana would do protecting Shan or any of these other scenarios. And so that
I think you're right.
Expose Deshaun a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think to your point, like Danny in any normal situation would defend him immediately, but on Survivor, you don't always want to jump in front of the sword because then you're the one who gets stabbed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that was your number 6.
Correct. Right? Yes.
Yeah. So my number 6 is Shan, and I agree with you that from here on out, I can see any of these people go home. I don't think Shan will go home, and that's why I put her above the remaining 2 people because of the edit, right?
Right.
She's been the main character, Ace of 41 so far, and even reading into kind of like her tweets, right? She's loving this experience, and she's the hate, and when she does well, she really is proud of herself, and she should be. And so I don't see somebody that goes out in 8th place do that. Right.
Good point.
So that being said, again, one of the greatest first half of a season ever played. Just major props to her. And her issue that has really been the source of all this drama is her, I think, urge to like be in the driver's seat, right? And I kind of thought about why somebody who is so high in EQ would want to feel that way. I think it's more about she wants to feel in control. She wants that security, that psychological knowledge that things are going my way and I know what it will happen or what may happen. She really wants that comfort. And she hates it when the comfort is not there or when her allies that she trusts starts having different ideas, right? Yeah. When I bet that when she in real life has friends or allies, right, it's like a really rock solid thing. And she hates the possibility that some of her allies might have different thoughts, right? And if so, she wants to know. And so all this boils down to the fact that she honestly hasn't, been able to take a step back when she probably should have taken a step back when it comes to Deshaun or Ricard. But I also wonder whether the edit has nitpicked some clips that do show her kind of cutting somebody else's words or jumping in a conversation. Because at the end of the day, like, nobody's perfect. And maybe overall she's a much better social player. And because of this narrative arc, CBS just picked some of these clips to tell us exactly why there are issues coming up. But I think that's still overall very strong gameplay. And full disclosure, my pre-premiere winner pick was her, and
Nice.
Still like it a lot. Still think she has a shot, and if we are going to get a female winner, I think it's her now.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right that certain things are being cherry picked. I mean, at the end of the day, like everyone says what they say on the show, but Shan isn't like, people still like her. Like the other like it's not like all the players need to get rid of her. She still has a really great standing in this alliance. So I think we are being shown that she's more XYZ than she's probably actually being. I have Shan at number 7, which then leads to Liana at number 8. I don't think this is Shan's week because she is the face of this season right now. And I don't think the face of the season would go home in 8th place. I just think she's in a really tough position. So it would feel wrong to have her in like the top 4. I actually think this could be Liana's week. We've been talking a lot about this majority alliance kind of imploding and collateral damage. And I think, the main, if this falls apart, the 2 main heads that are butting are Shan and Deshawn. And so I think there could be a little bit of Danny targeting, but I think at the same time, if you want to injure Shan without getting rid of Shan, because she does have an idol, and I'm confident that she's smart enough to know how to play it, you're going to think, okay, I need to get rid of Ricard or I need to get rid of Liana. I think on paper, Liana seems a lot more tied to Shan than Ricard is. And Liana is somebody who is having a bit of tunnel vision with Xander. So Liana maybe wouldn't see a shot towards her coming. So unfortunately, I think this is Liana's week. And maybe Xander is the one who does it. Maybe the votes land on her and he idols her out.
I think that scenario would almost be this like poetic conclusion to this.
Yeah. With the idol that she tried to take from him, it all would come full circle.
Yeah. She hates his face and he idols her out. It's well.
Then she would really hate his face.
Yeah. Whether they've been buds in real life post game. Side note, I have confirmed with the pre-merge cast that there was no pre-merge trip this season.
What a bummer.
It makes sense because of COVID, but I have to say that. I mean, I was talking to my pre-merge group. That trip is what made us who we are today.
Right.
Obviously, I have played the game with Gonzo and Brendan, etc. But like our friendship would not be what it is today if we hadn't been to Australia and had this once in a lifetime trip where our jobs were to forget about the fact that we lost Survivor and to really just have fun with each other. That's your job out there. And I mean, big thanks to CBS for even making that happen for most seasons. And the fact that the current pre-merge of, honestly, like, I mean, somebody like Voce or Sarah or Sydney interacting in Australia, in Brisbane or Cairns would be amazing. But they didn't have a chance. So I don't know how we got to this point, but it is a tragic development.
It is tragic.
It's all COVID's fault. My number 8 by deduction is Ricard.
Wow.
I mean, this again is maybe me leaning a little bit too much into this preview. As you point out, that it could be a red herring, could be
right.
Yeah. And maybe the episode itself will pan out a different way. And again, I do think that Liana, Shan, Deshawn, Ricard, this group of 4 is one tier. If I were looking at Ricard, I think that the thing that I go back to is the fact that in this war of sorts, Deshawn nominally has Danny as his number 1, and the camp out, no matter how, I do think that at some point, somebody in the alliance might pull the 4 of them aside and be like, and go, what are we doing here? Because we had this amazing common mission to rep like us and our group well the way that the cookout did. And what are we doing here, guys? We need to kind of reset and commit to each other. And I can see that kind of conversation working really well. Maybe somebody like Danny, who has charisma, brings it up, versus Ricard, where he's in no major alliance like that. His number 1 is Shan, and they fight a lot.
Yeah.
So he will revert back to the plan B, which is pull in Erica, Heather, and Xander. Okay. So if you do that, though, I think we've seen evidence of somebody like Xander being willing to play every angle possible, right? And we even saw Danny and Xander have one of those bro talks last week. Xander wants to keep his options open, and I do think that Erica and Heather might be down for any move that keeps their names off the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, if this really blows up, I think he will have a smaller margin of error than Deshaun or Shan, I think. And that's why I have him last, but honestly, pretty hard to kind of pinpoint somebody that is truly like the standout kind of threat.
Yeah, I mean, you just put out a really good scenario there, and one of ours will, I mean, hopefully or probably be right. I think you're right. I think like not only like preview or not, we have seen there be tension with Ricard and a major member of this alliance. I guess it really depends on like how much Shan is willing to fight for him or fight against him. We got a really, really cool moment with him, which either could be his winner quote or his kiss of death last week with talking about him being hard of hearing. So I don't know. I think it can really swing both ways. I think if Ricard gets to the end, I think he could totally win, but I think he has a really hard path there, and this very well could be his week.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And thinking of that point, actually, if you were going down the list to think about if they get to the end, can they win? It's a hard no for Heather, sadly.
Right.
Erica needs to start playing hard right now if she wants to have a shot, but now probably less likely. Liana might have a weak-ish resume to like really appeal her case if she's up against any of the stronger players, right?
Yeah.
And then I see Shan, Deshaun, Ricard, Danny, and Xander all having a good case to for themselves. I actually wonder whether, most final threes end up being a blowout win, but I, having been a member of a tie season, I do want to have a strong final three, and I want to see some real fireworks go off at Final Tribal, and maybe a top two or top three evenly splitting the votes might be interesting. But I guess this is truly the final eight is the kind of point where people start thinking, okay, in a normal season, the family visits up next, right?
Right.
Now that's not happening, but I mean, again, having not been in this position, I can't help but wonder if you get that close, right? You start thinking, if a few things go the right way for me now, like I'm going to be sitting there at the end and I have a real shot at $1 million. And so that additional like hope and that intensity will, I think, spark some fire underneath some people. Maybe that'll lead to even bolder moves and even crazier moves, or maybe that'll lead somebody to think that, okay, I have an alliance and that's my ticket to the final X, right? I'm going to ride that, right? It could go either way, but I think we'll see some talk about the beginning of the end. This Wednesday.
Right. Because we're, especially with, I don't know, half, maybe less than half, a lot of people on this season still having idols and advantages, and there aren't a lot of opportunities left to use them. So the numbers are just getting a lot tighter, and there's only 3 or 4 more votes until there's just no more options to vote anymore. So I think everyone's going to be really feeling the pressure, and it's going to make for either some amazing gameplay or really sloppy gameplay, but it will certainly be entertaining.
Yeah, certainly. And I think I read somewhere that obviously we have only a few weeks left. So the Thanksgiving week episode, and then December 1st and December 8th. And then we have the finale on December 15th. And I've read somewhere, maybe I'm wrong, but a 3-hour finale.
It is a 3-hour finale. And I think if I'm doing my math right, it will be a final 5 finale.
Okay, so it'll be probably the final 5 to the final 3, Final Tribal, and the winner being announced there, like on set, live. Yeah. And then we have an hour-long Zoom-based reunion, right?
Or I think the reunion might have happened. Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought they were like, I think they read the votes at the Final Tribal, the way they did in your season. And then they'll do a Zoom reunion. Okay. Oh, I don't like the Zoom ones, but I got it.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
are like we're really sprinting towards the end now. So
Yeah, we're sprinting. We're there. It's crazy that we only have 4 more weeks.
yeah,
It's
and March
wild.
it'll be sad to have the finale and knowing that we'll have a 3-month long off season. But overall, again, like I think we all agree, it's great to have it back.
Yeah.
It's been through the ups and downs, a compelling season with good people on it, right? So as a fan, good to have the show back, and it's also good to kind of know that even at a place like like business school and law school where people are busy, like there have been a surprising number of fans to keep up with the show. And just doing my part to be a brand ambassador for Survivor here on campus.
You are doing a great job. You have viewing parties every week. I love that.
Yep.
That's great. I mean, and also I'll take a 3 months off season over a 1.5 year off season any day of the week. So it's crazy to think we're already near the end, but we're definitely in for a fun ride to finish it up. So with that, James and I will be back this Wednesday recapping the episode because Phil is no longer a member of this podcast. But come back. I'm actually not going to be podcasting this Wednesday. My parents are coming to New York and we're going to do some touristy New York things. So you'll be stuck with Phil and I assume Robert, but we'll figure that out for this recap. Hope everyone has an amazing Thanksgiving. Again, tune in right after the episode. James, any parting words before we log off?
Not much. I'll be spending my 4th, I believe, Thanksgiving with the Shapiro family. So thanks to Brendan. And again, like everyone, I mean, this friendship was born out of Survivor, right? And you go on the show to win $1 million and become famous, but I personally brought home some amazing friendships with people like Brendan and Gonzo and Morgan and Bradley and Wendell, Dom. I mean, name the cast. And I hope that even this cast, being comprised of so many good people and good characters, I hope that they're having a blast as a friend group in the real world, and just kind of grateful to always think that none of this would have happened without Survivor, right? So good job to the casting team and Jesse and co, and definitely keep it up. But yes, I'll be flying down to DC on Tuesday, but I'll be back on campus next weekend, and I'll keep hosting those viewing parties on campus, and hopefully you guys will see me walk across the stage and have some meetups with Evie during commencement this coming May. So it's my last year in school, so I'm glad to wrap up grad school this way, and we'll see what's next.
I'm really excited for the day 17 photo this May. That's going to be great. All right.